So this is a depiction of working memory, okay? So it's called the multi-component model of working memory. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to it. That's why it's multi-component, 4 components to it. Now, the executive function here, central executive, that's the part that focuses your attention. And that's the part that says, what is that number? I just 25 times, okay, 25 times 25, that is, 5 times 5, that's 25. That's your episodic buffer going down into long-term memory and picking up that multiplication fact. That 5 times 5 is 25. You got to have that. If you don't have that in long-term memory, you can't bring it up. Think of working memory as this room. Okay, and there's this image thing producer here. That's your visual spatial sketchpad. The phonological loop is the ability for us to use words and language. But now I go outside this room with my episodic buffer. Episodic just means event. And this episodic buffer brings the words and the images together with long-term memory. And I go out there and said, well, what's 5 times 5? I don't have it in here. I go out there and get it. And I bring it in. And I use it. Okay? Now, my visual sketchpad is my ability to be able to visualize and see the numbers in my head. That's your visual sketchpad. And I was listening to this young lady over here, and as I looked around the room, you guys were going, 5 times 5 is 25, and carry by 2. And then that's 5 times 6 is 30, 32, 3, 25, 25, 3. Okay, forget it. You know? So that's the phonological loop. When I give you a phone number to remember, especially if you're on the road and somebody gives you a number, you say, okay, 505. Okay, forget the 505. Everybody's 505 except for those poor people that live out there in the boonies and they're 575. So then I'll say 2893362. Okay, 28933. And you repeat that. You know why you're repeating it? Because you refresh it in short-term memory. You refresh it. And that's the phonological loop. That's why you're repeating these numbers. Or when you're reading in bed there, and you're reading a difficult passage, something that Zach may have given you to read, and they say, oh, I don't know. And you read it again, and then you read it out loud, because that's a biofeedback loop. Say, I'm going to make sense of this. I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it out loud. And that's what your kids are doing when they're reading. And you say, I don't want you to sound out the words, but you know what they're doing is something that's very natural, and it's a biofeedback loop. So this is the multi-component theory of working memory. The executive function is very, very, very important because, when I'm first grade, when I was talking to Bill this morning, I said, when I go into first grade classes, second grade class, I got to be very careful as to how I present a problem, because I say, okay, so you have 3 birds on a wire, 2 more fly in. How many birds do you have? And my mother's bird died. They'll do that, yeah. Or I don't like birds. Or, went to the restaurant and the birds ate my food. So that's executive function. That's focusing attention. So if I see a teacher in here, and you cannot learn without focusing your attention. So if I see somebody, yesterday that happened, but I had no control over it. It was in my conference. People come in and they sit down, and they start monkeying around with their phone, and I'm starting. Because you cannot focus being on this phone and doing what we're asked to do. You can't do it. There's no way. Unless you're trying to multiply 6.5 times 6.5. Yeah, and that would be something that somebody would say, well, I'm just using it, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to do it in your head. Okay, so let me show you how all this works with this problem. 6.5 times 6.5, I'm going to do it vertically here, and I'm going to go from left to right instead of right to left. And as Rick says in the next room, your right arm won't blow off if you start with the left-hand side. So now listen to the language. 6 of 6 is how much? 36, and I'll have you repeat it, and I'll repeat it myself. That's the phonological loop. 6 of 6 or 6 times 6 is sketch. Now, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to erase this so you won't have to see it, because I want to put it in your head so illustrate the visual sketchpad. So 6 of 6 is 36. Now, some people would say 6 times 0.5. Okay? 6 times 0.5. No. I'm going to turn that 0.5 into what? I have to know my equivalents, 1/2. And I'm not going to say 6 of 1/2. You can say that. But it's much easier if I say 1/2 of 6. Use the commutative property. 1/2 of 6 is 3. 3. 1/2 of 6 again. 3. So that's 36 plus 6. That's 42. 1/2 of 1/2. 1/4 or 0.25. 42.25. You see that? I did not overwhelm my working memory. But if I only show you how to do this, then I'm overwhelming your working memory. I'm not teaching you how to solve these problems mentally, so everything becomes very frustrating to the individual, the teacher. So what I did here was this, algebraically, the algebraic notation. What's that? 36. And then what's this? Yeah, and then what's this? And then what's this? That's that. The other way, and people ask, so let's have this. 6 plus 0.5, 6 plus 0.5, and I get this, don't I? An open array. And that is the same as this. Now, yesterday I was asked the question, well, how many strategies should I teach these kids? They get confused. They come to me and say, I'm getting confused between all these strategies. Well, then you're teaching the strategies for strategy's sake. We don't want you to go to the market and pull out a pad and do the lattice method, God forbid, or do arrays. Why are we teaching you to do arrays? It is so that you understand multiplication, and eventually you get to this, because I'm using the distributive property to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, which is that. You're making connections. That's what you as a teacher are doing, not only as a constructivist, but as a connectionist. You're helping them make these connections. So if they don't have all of this, in here in long-term memory, your episodic buffer can't bring it all together. You can only use what you've got. If you've only got a hammer to build a house, you're trying to use a hammer to screw bolts in, to screw nuts in, No, you don't screw nuts. You screw screws, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, don't get carried away now. Okay, so. Okay, you guys get the idea of working memory, what working memory is? Okay, take a minute and talk to your partners there, okay? And what is it, talking mouths? Is that what it is? Is that the Kagan structure?
Talking mouths?
Yeah.
What is it? Oh, talking heads. Okay, talking heads. Okay, heads together. And not literally now, okay? But do that and explain to each other what your concept of working memory, okay? I'll give you about 30 seconds, okay? I was talking to these two young ladies here, and Eileen said something, I think, very profound. Can you repeat that, Eileen, please?
When you had mentioned something about how they connect previous knowledge to what's in the long term, so the students come in with long-term memory already, even though they're first or second graders. And so I connected that to the Ghanas, where we have to, that's why it's so critical that we use prior knowledge to bring it in. And I think sometimes, and I'm guilty, that I rush into the lesson without bringing that in there to make that connection.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. That's why I said it's profound. You just made a connection. That's what the episodic buffer does. Right. You already have the Ghanas form in mind. You know how that works. So you just made the connection with what I'm saying here. And that's exactly what we want in the launch. And that's why the launch is so important. But sometimes in the literature say, oh, launch work, it's best practice. But they don't tell us why it works. And teachers, to be honest, we don't like theory. We like what? practicality. I want to learn something today, Saturday, that I can use on Monday. I don't want any theoretical talk. That's a waste of time to me. But now if you understand why, then you use it. If you don't understand why, then it's somebody with a higher authority, a higher power saying you should use this. And so we say, okay, Marzano really knows what he's talking about. So we say what? Oh, best practice, I should use it. But there's some people that will use it, others that will say, no, I don't understand, I don't want it, it's too much, and boom. And he doesn't give us any theory behind it, really. So you have to look for it yourself as a scholar and as a teacher.